Welcome to littlefish Dream Engine workshop number 3. In this session, we will talk about the system and the cause and effects of the system to our lives. And we will check the history, what happened, and what can be done in means of changing the methods that we use. So I want to share my robot with you. Today, we will start with writing what happened, what did the system prevent you from doing it. So in my entire lifetime, I failed many times with the system. First of all, I wanted to be a guitar player, but I couldn't pass the exams. And I want to be an electrical engineer, but I couldn't have the maths that required for the electrical engineer. And for that reason, I had to go to offshore and study there. And I tried to create a startup, but I couldn't take any funds from the government. And I've been to the largest bank of Turkey and with the same project, and they gave me 1 million Turkish lira about 6 years ago. And it was my first startup, but I couldn't find the way within the system. So I want you to write down here. Shakan, did you share the links?
Yep, it's in the chat.
Can you write down here what did the system prevent you from doing it? So, and we will, after that, we will look at the historical figures and where were they, and we will identify them. And if you know more historical people, you can also write down here.
So the aim here is to gather anecdotes from all of us that kind of symbolizes what is wrong with today's society. So there's just some dumb things that happen because the system just sucks. And the system is very general, as in, like, it can be any system. It can be the education system did me wrong because X, Y, and Z. It could be the health system is stupid. I got to pay $5,000 to get on an ambulance. That type of thing. Like, we've experienced, all of us, many times, like, just dumb stuff that just are because they are bureaucracy or some other reason. So we just have a few different categories. First is, what did the system prevent you from doing? Because it was just is the system. And the aim with all this is to, like, collect anecdotes from all of us and then build this into the AI story that we're building. So hopefully it'll contain a part of all of our stories as the community that is building Little Fish Foundation. So it kind of has something from all of us, hopefully. Would anyone like to share? Nori, can you tell us about Amazon and how the system there worked against what you wanted to do?
Yeah, at Amazon, I was the manager for 2 different software development teams, and I've been reading books on teal and things, and even Zappos, one of the acquisitions that Amazon made, totally made a switch to teal, reinventing organizations and holacracy. And but even with that, I don't know how Zappos did it, because in my organization, you just couldn't. There was still just stuff in place. Like every year we would come together to do performance reviews, and we'd talk, and you'd have to basically grade everybody. Are they satisfactory, not satisfactory, or exceeding expectations? And then anybody who's not satisfactory, you immediately have to come up with a development plan to get them out of that into at least average. And then if they fail, there's this whole pathway to leaving the company. So it's basically downgrade or top grading. And they say that there's no stack ranking, there's none of that happening, but in reality, it does happen. Like they want to get rid of the bottom 20% every year. And that's just one example of the kinds of processes in place that made it really hard to build a culture where people felt safe, where they felt okay to take risks, where they felt excited to come to work. Because if you're not at a very high level of performance, your job is at risk, and that's a reality there. And they don't do anything to say, hey, maybe this would be more better suited to you or find you a better fit. It's just, you're in this role. If you can't perform, you're out. So things like that were really hard to work against because it was so ingrained in that company culture.
Great.
Thanks for that. Anyone else would like to share? What did the system do wrong to you? Tell us.
So, hi everyone. So I just added on the board that for a year and a half, I was commuting from like 70 kilometers, 3 hours a day. And when I got to Lisbon, central Lisbon, got to this building, went up to my floor, got to my desk, said hi to everyone that worked in the room. I had no tasks or roles in common with those people, which are very nice for lunch. But then I was just working by myself and my desk with colleagues on Skype. And yeah, for the morning I had calls on Skype. For the afternoon I was working by myself. I had people that I was co-working with, but I had no purpose in going to Lisbon every day. Still, that was like, because I was via contracting and etc. Even when there was transport, transports were down or something, the office manager said, I'm paying for your days here, not remotely. You need to, your consultancy company needs to get you here no matter what. I don't care. So yeah, after a year or something, I got some experience in that position and I quit and went to look for fintech remote jobs.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Like, similar things like always happen.
Yeah.
I think it was my sister in her job, like she can't select the seat she sits at. It's not her manager that selects it, but her manager's manager. So she's been having
Yeah, I
difficulty.
had that as well.
Like, and this is an issue in this business that they need to resolve, like because she can't
Well,
select what she wants to say.
one day I was in one of the meeting rooms and the air conditioning was too cold for me. So I started looking for the control. I couldn't find it. I went to facilities department. I was in the middle of a call and I was really uncomfortable there. And I asked the guy, can you turn it down, you guys? And he told me that I had to open a ticket to go somewhere to be approved. And I was like, I'll just move. I'll just change room. Never mind.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Great, guys. So can we skip to the second phase? So the system is poor at assignments. So we all know, we all live something that we face something in our lives. Can you please have some ideas here? I know doctors in Turkey that they are very good at maths, but they are not caring their patients, most of them. And because the system is making them like that, because we are not looking if they are loving the patients or they have some humanitarian philosophies or instincts, but we are just only looking at their maths or physics results. So do you know such kind of assignments that is poor? And please copy and paste here. So this is all of us, our problems, and we want to identify them and we want to have some AI generated videos before the summit, and we want to point out the common problems that we have.
So as an example to this one, I am an electrical and electronics engineering major, and the only reason I selected it is because it had the highest score out of the engineering majors. And I knew I wanted to be an engineer, but I knew I didn't want to be a civil engineer or a mechanical engineer. So like, oh, what should I select? I should just select the one with the highest score. And that, like, it had no reflection to what I wanted to do, who I was. There was no guidance whatsoever, like from the system and which way I should be going and what my interests were. And I feel that here in Turkey, like, there's no guidance whatsoever for any individual. You exit university, and at that point you're like, oh yeah, I don't want to do that. Like, that's the only information you have at that stage.
Yeah.
Like, after that, maybe you start exploring yourself.
I also want to point out interesting things here. I started electronics when I was about 7 years old. I was making my amplifiers by myself with this circuit designs. And when I was in high school, I have oscilloscope function generators, about 1,000 of components, and I couldn't win the electrical engineering. So while you are writing, I want to go and have some historical information. So I want you to check the people that you know from the history and check if they are from the royal families or noble or were related to the king, and those are the ones that I found. Archimede, you all know, he is a relative of the king. Newton, we know he is a noble. Plato, he is also from royal family. Benjamin Franklin, he is a Freemason. So, what if Newton wasn't a royal? How many non-royal Newtons did we miss? Do you have a number in mind?
Maybe hundreds of geniuses like him.
I can say 10,000 or more.
No?
Also, the inventions that they made are in value of the corporations, governments, or religions, and they are not made for the humankind. So when you look at the internet, it was a project of military in the United States called DARPA, and we started using that. So it wasn't intended to be for the people. Hygienic pads, they wanted to take out the water from the jet gasoline, and it was invented by the military also, GPS. And if you know more, please feel here, so we can talk about them.
What about like in the United States, nuclear power is all done through uranium-based fast breeder reactors. And there's a safer like thorium reactor that doesn't melt down. It's super safe. We have enough thorium forever. But they went with the uranium stuff because the byproduct is weapons grade plutonium. And the safer reactors, the byproduct isn't militarily useful. So that's an example of what military totally dictated the US energy policy around nuclear power.
Absolutely. Can you write it, Nori?
I'm not sure how to write it down. I could just put nuclear power.
You know, also Heisenberg is similar in that sense. So we know he is a great physician, but we cannot say the same about his feelings and look at the human-centric issues. So it's here. What happened to the rest of those don't have relations? For example, Einstein. He struggled so much, and he didn't come from royal families, and he was a Jewish in Germany, old Germany, and he tried everything to publish his ideas. At the end, he found an academy called Olympia, and in this academy, he and his colleagues were talking about the philosophy and the science. So he took out his papers after having this academy. And also a negative part, Adolf Hitler couldn't pass the special talent exam in painting, and he tried this for 5 years in Vienna. But someone else was deciding if he is an artist or not. And from our day, we see the wisdom of the crowds. From Reddit, people join together and have a great implementation of GameStop, and they protected their shares together. They created a network state at that time. So, can you also write your ideas here? If the common goals are the people's goals, what could happen?
I think Linux is a great example.
Yeah.
And how difficult was it?
Sorry, Chuck?
And how difficult was it that Linux actually became the Linux we
Yeah,
know?
it was from the source of Unix, and Unix was not open source, and Linus Torvalds and the GNU team was working on an open source version of Unix, and they made it from the scratch, and they implemented the Linux kernel together. It was very hard at that time. And as far as I know, GitHub was the thing they created to work collaboratively. Yeah, I think we have infinitely many amazing things, right? When we have the common goals. Without bosses and without someone telling us to do something. Yesterday, I was thinking about the organisms and organs, and I tried to find my brain CEO cell, but there's no one. This is really interesting. They are thinking, the cells are thinking together and deciding what to have. But there are no bosses in our brain. Murmuring of the birds, if you have the photos, if you see the photos earlier, they also don't have any bosses.
You know that thing when a flock of birds like fly together and then they just move together? It's not called murmuring when fish do it though. Like I looked,
Yeah.
it's something else. I don't know what it is, but it's not murmuring.
Shoal something, wasn't it?
A
Yeah, they
shoal?
also say it's shoal, and murmuring is the primary word for it.
Okay.
Shoaling just means the fish come together, like different types of fish coming together. Schooling means the same type of fish come together, but it doesn't refer to the motion. Like murmuring just, I think, refers to the motion of those birds, like reacting to each other.
Okay. Murmuring. It's really interesting.
Anyone have some stories to tell about any of this? I've seen lots of stuff being put down to the board.
I'd just like to explain for someone who maybe isn't familiar with it. I've been listening to a lot of Bitcoin Maxi talk because I think it's interesting. And one thing in the Bitcoin for me, that's who only have 18 months in crypto. It's really interesting to know what happened in the Bitcoin block size wars. The community was some people were pushing something that would make Bitcoin faster, but more decentralized, more centralized. And in the end, although it wasn't more profitable in the short term and etc., the community opted to keep it as is, and someone else had to go and fork it to make Bitcoin Cash if they wanted or something. So that was something that it was completely decentralized, I think, and the best solution prevailed. Time will tell me, but yeah.
I think I was listening to a podcast like last week about this. They told that during the Bitcoin block size wars, there was a strong community reaction against those individuals. It was, I think, Roger Ver with the Bitcoin Cash. Strong resistance against those, like white blood cells just coming to protect the decentralized thing that is Bitcoin. But then after the war was won, then they just turned against each other because there's nothing to fight, and they're just fighters now. And
Yeah, that's very interesting as well.
I can also tell one story. So this is about how like the British ruled India. So the British ruled India in a very centralized manner, as in power was centralized and then it was divided through the country. But when India had to struggle for its freedom, freedom fighters like appeared at like random little places all around India, and they collected people around their movement. So the freedom struggle in India wasn't like a centralized movement. It was a decentralized movement that happened at the same time in different parts of India. And luckily, like all these decentralized little pockets like became stronger and stronger and defeated like the centralized power of like the British. But the funny part is, after all the decentralized fighting and all of that, we took like all the centralized stuff from the British Constitution and put it in ours. So that's how it ended.
So you broke down things to reinvent them and reinvented them the same way, but with different people in charge. Did I understand?
Yeah. So basically, the freedom struggle was just like individuals that started fighting, and like people like joined those individuals, and it was like against like the British like system. I'm sorry. Like, what was that the question? Or did you ask something else?
No. Yeah, never mind. I think we're on the same track. Cheers.
Ayşe, right now the United Kingdom Prime Minister is from India.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know, how do they talk about it in India? Do you have any rumors?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. We are just like, okay, now it's our time to like, you know, do what they did to us. It's just jokes, but but I'm not even really thinking that this guy is like a true representation of India, because he's married like one of the most powerful people in India. He represents like the 1% in India. So yeah, so he might just like look out for himself. Like, I don't know what the answer is by the end of the day. But yeah, in most Indians absolutely love it. Yeah.
You brought up a good point in your note here. The last statement you made saying, I think it's the same for most countries. And it made me kind of think, because I don't necessarily think that's fully true, in the sense that in certain countries where our rights and our way of life is not at the chopping block, like meaning we're not being forced to fix this problem for survival reasons, because I feel like that's what brings communities together. That's what maybe triggered, right, this event to happen, to get people to come together, is because things are being threatened, where the community is being threatened. And in areas where that's not necessarily true, like their way of life just kind of keeps going on and they're not being threatened, they tend not to come together for these things, right? They just let things be. And that's why I feel like corporations and big companies can kind of make these changes without the know-how of the community, because they just accept it. It's not threatening my way of life or my survival. So how can we promote, that's the question that came from that, was how can we promote this community and building and getting together, but without being in an environment that is threatening the individual or the community?
you build it and the results are better. Like, don't tear down the old, just build in parallel, and then people will move to the superior solution. And if it's not better, I don't want to be there either. But I have a feeling that decentralized kind of communities that we're building will have better outcomes. So we will outcompete, if you want to put it in the old terms, those legacy institutions and services, and they'll naturally get replaced because the new way will work better, have better outcomes.
I totally agree with that, Nori. But I also wonder, how does it get built, right? In such a way that, and again, using that old term, compete, in a way that can compete with the old way, because the old way has the money and the resources and the power, right, to build monoliths. Whereas what we're trying to do over here is building solutions in tandem with it that can compete. But again, since there's really no risk or threaten or survival mechanism there, how can we build something that can compete with that amount of resources available to them?
I think we have the resources right now, but they are not in the correct hands. So when we have a goal together, and when we will be able to explain it clearly to vast majority of people, I'm pretty sure we will have some kind of crowdsourcing and funding, and we will have the ability to do everything by ourselves. So we are trying here a new methodology, and we will find out the ways to work without buses. And we will learn how to align to the issues together. And I think many people there will support us, and we will see that. And if we have time, I also want to talk about it, Shakan. Is it possible?
Sure.
On the right-hand side, you can look at this example from Gimbalabs. It's showing the phases of a transition on Cardano, decentralized organizations. So at level 0, we started as employees and leaders and some guys here. But in the end, we need to be here without bosses, and we want to implement this, and we should have a master plan on how to do that. So at the end, when we finish everything here, there will be no bosses and there will be no one in charge. Just the vast majority's ideas and the I don't want to say votes, but goals will design the future of littlefish. So for that reason, we also want to have some token distribution as stated here, but we don't have the percentages yet. We will calculate them in the following weeks, I think. So when we go to the public, we will say that we will have some ratio for the founders, initial community, and first public sale will be to Cardano. And when we go to Ocean in Ethereum and other blockchains, we will have another public sale, and we will have some development funding, and we will have STG funding. So there are no VCs here, there are no bosses, and we will not be taking profits from the system in all of our lifetimes. So we will take our tokens, we will have them, and we will work for littlefish, and at the end, littlefish will be continuing forever without us. And the system will be able to feed itself, and it will have the trust. So we are different, you know, we don't have VCs, we don't have such kind of people, and we don't have bosses here. We will create the system, and we will, in the summit especially, we will ask for the others to come and join us, and we will build a new system, decentralized system, to make it easy for the people to create network organizations. And when we succeed, the system will succeed, and we will have amazing things and we will watch them. Do you have any opinions about the transition times and also token distribution?
I'm just thinking out loud about well, here you have it as levels of decentralization. And
Yes.
on the past session, I think we were talking about the Ikigai and how Ikigai changes over time for a person. There was also something that we could call the Ikigai of the organization. So yeah, I think on the right side schema that you have with the founders on the center, I'm just thinking, how does that mature over time? So obviously you have a vision and the mindset and all the plan, but then as the community grows a bit and as it gains more layers of ideas of people contributing, I don't mean to say that the founders shouldn't be at the center, but I'm just pointing out that as the organization gets also, I wouldn't say structured because we're not looking to build a hierarchy. How does that core value may mature or iterate over time?
Yeah, we had this plan when we are creating Littlefish Foundation with Chaka, and it will go with the Fibonacci series. So it started with me, and Chakan came. It's 2. It will be 3 and 5, and you know, the Fibonacci. We will take people inside as managers or the people who can change the system, and it will every time it will expand. So in the first phase, now we are with Chakan, and in the second phase, we also who make transaction with Littlefish Foundation since its creation will get benefit from this green line, and they will have fish tokens, and they will have that vote power. After that, we will have the full Cardano community. They will also have the vote power, and they will be inside the system, and we all will manage the Littlefish Foundation. So this is the transition phase as described here. But we will have a similar thing, but not the exact table. This is just a presentation from Gimbal Labs. So I think we are right now about level 1, level 2, and we are going to have our smart contracts, but the leadership will continue maybe two more quarters, and after that we will have tokenized system, and it will be a complete DAO without buses.
I think in time it's natural for like the founders and even the core group to have less and less and less influence over time.
Yeah.
How that transitions, what we were thinking is we should come up with phases, like milestones that we can hit, kind of define them at this stage so that we can know a year out, 2 years out, whenever that time is, that, okay, we have hit that milestone, now we can transition into the next decentralization phase. And with each of those phases, it just becomes more, hopefully, decentralized. And it just makes more and more sense for the community to control more and more things.
I also want to point out in the video that I have a daytime job, and I quitted from all my jobs and startups and other stuff, and founded Littlefish Foundation, and Chakan did the same after me. And in the third scene, you will be there. In the first scene, we will be there, and in the third scene, you will be there, and for the fourth scene, we will ask for the Cardano community to be inside the Littlefish Foundation.
Yeah, okay. Also just thinking out loud again, this growth probably is not going to happen linear. It's probably going to have cycles of breathing. And for example, when we expand a lot, there's more diverse and more noise, I would say, of ideas, more, and then, yeah, so sometimes it's healthy to have cycles where it contracts a bit and we go back to
Mhm.
what's the name, the core values, maybe, to, yeah.
Yeah, but
I hope it doesn't take 4 years like in
no, impossible.
bear markets, bull markets, otherwise.
Yeah. Uh, we have the pains with the system. So most of the people have this pains. And we will be calling them. And they have professions and they will take apart from littlefish. And they will do what they know as a profession. And when we combine, say that 50 to 100 people together to build a great system altogether, I think we can kickstart the things that we have in mind, like network organizations. People can make groups and have some Twitter posts together to make impact. Some can do SDG activities, and we will see them. So there will be no bosses, and how they are operating their system, we will see, and we will find the solutions to make them work together.
I have a bit of a selfish question here. It's kind of a pointed question. In your graph on the phased graph, it talks about the governance and the tokenomics of it. And it's transitioning from pseudo tokens to governance tokens. Is there an idea on how is that two separate coins and one gets burned and turned into a governance once that stage is reached, or are they like a utility token and a governance token, or what's kind of the idea and thought process there?
Honestly, I don't know yet, but maybe Çakan has some information about it. But I think it's a technical issue. So
I think
right?
it's all up for grabs, but me personally, I hate voting. So probably something without voting, or at least something that, clouds voting and some other thing. Like we have actions. I think there are many different ways that we can use actions to do governance. Like, I don't know, some type of actions, maybe we vote, at least give likes, and those carry weight in some situations. Like we can have a wide variety of ideas and test them out and see what happens. We can start with voting. Like it's probably going to be voting at the end, and I'm going to look terrible. Let's have better ideas than voting. Yay.
I also don't like voting.
Yeah, as long as we don't vote on every single decision.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's a mix of governance styles, and there are times where voting is useful, but there's other times where you should seek consensus, or other times you should just seek consent and use the advice process. Like governance is, just having governance tokens and voting, I think would be very brittle and not fun.
Voting is the last option. Like if nothing else makes sense, okay, then you can have voting, like in, I don't know, very rarely. Other than that, there are many other ways to make decisions and make them well. And we're starting using these in advice process and all those. Yeah.
But I also want to point out our actions will be sellable forever. So we will release the white paper. It will be sellable forever. We will release some impactful things, and as NFTs, it will be for sale forever. So
and
we do
the NFTs
yes
carry royalty.
Yes. All the time.
And does littlefish as an organization set the royalties, or does the individual that's creating the action set the royalties? I mean, what's your idea for it?
For littlefish, we will have our own percentages that we didn't decide yet, but for other network organizations, the creator will decide what to have.
Yeah, our thinking is the organization selects it. So maybe there's a model for some organization that lets individuals selected. Maybe that makes sense. But there are many parameters like this that we can play with. And one of the ideas that we had was just like, let the organization customize these parameters as they want to create whatever type of organization they want, because different things make sense in different contexts. And that kind of allows the very vibrant ecosystem of organizations to exist.
I think that does introduce, though, a bit of a demand for education. Not a problem. I'm just saying, like, by not creating a standard that these other projects need to adhere to and letting them, right, kind of choose their own parameters, the end user needs to be educated on what those differences might be, you know, by picking this action or this action by different projects with different parameters. You need to be aware of that. Does that fall on littlefish? It doesn't sound like it, right? But that is something to be aware of, I think.
We will give options to the organization creator. For example, if the organization is making street art, creative street art, so I think they will give much of this percentage to the artist, and they will take some to themselves. And when a user want to purchase the NFTs, they will only see the street art there and a collection maybe. So the end user will know nothing about it. They will know it's an action, and it stores action, and it's a real thing.
I think this would impact, like when you're creating those actions, you would need to know if you're a member of many different organizations. When you select, oh, I'm only gonna get 5% of this. At that stage, maybe that's important. But I think that falls into like definitely there needs to be some education. Probably on the UI end, that should be made very clear.
And also one second, I was thinking of something. Oh yeah. So what do you guys think of a reputation system, since we are having actions? Say one day, like a very important aspect of the littlefish app is an action that needs to be done. Can like a random person that just joined littlefish come and do that action? Or is there like some reputation system we can build, because we are already doing actions? So the more actions we do, we can build reputation or some system like that, so that, you know, to do like extremely important actions, there is a barrier to entry.
Yeah, we have some plans on the belief side. So as a capital, people with reputation, like the founders and the initial team, can send belief to other people that they know. So those people will be reputable.
So it's like a peer-to-peer system rather than like a wallet-based action system.
Yeah.
Here, there are many possibilities that excite me. Like when we have actions in your wallet, like you created these actions, right? There is no reputation score, but there is like in our minds, when I look at your wallet, oh, you have reputation in my mind. Like I can't pinpoint it, but it exists. Like we can use that. Imagine like coming back to that governance question, we just say, let's do delegated reps. Let's do voting with delegated reps. But the thing is, like you just look at their actions and give your delegation to that person, just very, very quickly. And that person will take on the role of like doing politics, like whatever, in whatever context. Like they're the person who needs to become an expert in that situation. So just working with social reputation, that excites me. But building it into governance as well, like there are many possibilities that are just very, very exciting, but needs super hard like token engineering work.
Or we could just give the colonies the options to do whatever they want with the reputation. Like these are the actions in a wallet. They can choose the system they want to implement based on those actions. So.
Oh yeah, Like that approach is actually really good. Like if we just have an approach of colonies, you can just go ahead and try anything you want. Like this is just destructive interference of capitalism, right? Just try things. If it works, it blows up. If it doesn't, it just destroys itself. Like that can be a method of doing things. Not sure what the end result will be. Like, if you let them do like if we launch tokens for each colony, as my example, like you can do your own token distribution, but most of them are Ponzi's. Like boop, they just die. Like many things to consider there. But, no.
By the way, just one about that reminded me of something I was thinking just now when I was hearing to something, an article about AGIs, like the artificial generic intelligence organizations, and that approach that you mentioned now, where you have a lot of tokens and some fail and self-destruct and that self-cleansing. I just crossed my mind a bit about we're trying to make an AI. This is sort of a sidetrack, I'm sorry, but usually people talk about creating an AI and then creating it a generic AI. And it's always like this global AI that like the Tesla thing that learns from all the cars that are driving. But when we're talking about people organizations, we don't scale a company with just one person growing a massive brain. We scale a company by one person delegating and creating teams of people and etc. So it just crossed my mind. So what if we, instead of creating a massive super brain AGI, we should create teams or allow it to branch out in that like organism of small AIs working as teams and with hierarchy or no hierarchy. So it's in a way we start talking about non-hierarchical organizations of AIs. How do you think? Is it too off topic?
I want to try non-hierarchical structures, and I want to find my solution there. But if we cannot do that, I think
So,
we should have some managers for the teams. But flat is good at that point, without bosses and managers, middlemen. Because when you think of our brains, it works the same, right? We don't have a manager CEO cell at the top of our brains, but they are working great.
But the brain itself is the CEO, no?
Yes, it defines itself as personality, but it consists of trillions of cells, but none of them are in charge. And we can copy it from there, and we can try it without the managers and middlemen. It's my opinion.
I like that idea of small AIs, like, but I just can't shake the feeling that they're gonna fight each other for some reason. I don't know. But it kind of reflects like what we have with DAOs as well. All these like small teams, decentralized teams, just popping up all over the place, and we'll just figure out some way to collaborate with them, and then form this like meta hive or something. Kind of reminds me of that.
that's the thing. When people have, or organizations or nodes have things in common, they would coalesce. If not, they would fork. And when they fork, it's survival of the fittest or something.
I feel like the goal is to let that coexist, right? Or let those different groups coexist. And if there's a conflict, that's when they, join forces.
I think it's important for DAOs to have the concept of merging and forking built in, so that if something comes up and they feel that's too big, they can say, okay, let's split into 3, and then the tokens get split into 3 treasuries and they branch off. Or later they go, oh, we're really compatible with them, we can come together, and somehow their tokens merge and and then maybe later split again. But those kind of things are important so that things don't ossify and you're able to grow and morph as you need.
Yeah, that topic actually just came up today on Clarity DAO's pitch competition, where I started to talk about how DAOs, as they get more established and that their community itself starts to grow, that's when you see conflict, you know, when it becomes too large to contain that DAO. And then you have special interests, you know, working groups that sort of branch off, managing the treasury, maybe managing the community, whatever their roles and responsibilities are, they start to branch off. So I'm starting to do some research myself because we're building a DAO and trying to figure out what those stages are. You know, at what point does a DAO, is it overgrowth? And then you can implement discos, you know, underneath it and have a bunch of discos where they're working groups in a sense, and essentially, and they can manage their own treasury if they need to.
Oh, the one model that I really like is Hire's model. This is just a company from China. They build white label products like refrigerators, ACs, that type of thing. And they're massive. They're about 90,000 employees. I may be wrong, but in tens of thousands of employees. And what they run is they run a network of startups, an ecosystem of startups, they call it. Like they have teams, and these teams kind of rely on each other. So for one AC unit, they would have like 20 teams. Just one would produce one part, one would produce another part, and they just collaborate and support each other. And they're all like actually in the same time kind of computing against each other as well. So they have to collaborate and compute. So that's yeah, sure. Like I'll send you a link about this one. That model I really like. Like if we could kind of build littlefish in that model with, we have network of startups. We have an Ikigai startup, an action app startup, a research startup, so on and so forth. But you just going out and setting all the stages of those DAOs, I think that would be very helpful and useful info for us as well. So please share. If we do that research, we would love to publish it on littlefish knowledge base.
Mm-hmm. There's an interesting question on size. Like organism stems from the word organ, which means that it's a collection of organs. Like you have a liver and a heart, a stomach and a brain, and each one of those are within one organism. But you don't have two hearts. When you start to get duplicates, you have another organism. So when do you have one entity with multiple things inside, and when does that split into its new thing? Through what evolutionary pressures? Because we're all about decentralization, so we don't want one organization to grow to encompass the world and employ 10 billion people. So what is that kind of, when does littlefish become second fish? And then it's completely separate, but maybe collaborates in some other ways.
I think this is possible, Nori, because when we have the ikigais of the people as members, the action makers can select those people by their ikigai and can form a new organization within any organization. For example, to make a tweet about something that you care, and he can find you through littlefish, and he can select you, let's do this, and you will have this rate of commission when the NFTs are sold. So this is a network organization to make impact. So we will have a, you know, the life soup of everything, all the organisms. So we will have a pool of littlefish with Ikigai's field, maybe 10,000 people or more. And when a new person come to littlefish to create an action, he will be able to select those people and send them an invitation to join his organization and do something instantly, maybe in 2 minutes, to pump a Bitcoin. I don't know. Everything can happen.
Yeah.
And they will take their profit with the smart contract. We will use that soup again and again for everything that we can have.
That's the primordial soup of little fish.
Yeah.
That we can,
Mm.
you can pick little fishes from to form your organizations in short times. Like, we're gonna go clean the beach. It's 1 week organization. Pick some from the soup.
Like flash mobs.
Okay.
But taking the organ thing a little further, if there's a team of people that's very good at what they do, but the organization around them kind of collapses, maybe we can do like an organ transplant and find another place that's needing that kind of team. And as long as the models are similar enough, they could slot right in and say, okay, we have a new home. And
No, but Nori, when you say organ transplant, there is like a higher power, which is like a doctor or someone doing it like manually. In this system, since there is no like single power that can do it, like how does that even happen? Do they only like start looking, or is there like some external pressure?
that's a good question. Yeah.
I can say that we have unity in everything in littlefish. As the word fish states that fish is also plural and singular. So we don't need to bind to an organization to create another organization. So an organization is equal to a fish, an individual is equal to a fish. So
So
this will make everything easier, I hope.
yeah, and I can see the little fish moving from group to group to group, depending on their ikigai and what their interests are. But is there something higher than that, that isn't people, but is the processes or the knowledge or the frameworks or the systems built by this team that is valuable in and of itself? And those kind of things could be either cloned or copied to another group or improved upon. So I think there's kind of this higher level beyond the person of stuff we're building as well as a group.
You know, just today, we set in the metadata like parent organizations, and we put that up as like an array just so it could select multiple organizations. And this, what you're talking about, pretty much like is enabled by this type of like little thing. Like, if it's a use case, I think it's definitely something that we can support. And we, even from the beginning with Jem and I, we were thinking about this, like we do want organizations to be forkable, to be changeable by others. If they like this information that the organization has already prepared, like it should be easy for them to just copy and do their own. Like actions are just basically NFTs. You can just copy paste and create your own one. The worst case, like we should be building systems that allows for that type of behavior. And like you said, just moving from one organization, one working team, moving from one organization to another. That would be crazy. Like what happened if the Gmail team moved from Google to Amazon? Like that's a crazy idea. Would love to see that actually happen, like things like that enabled.
Yeah, each brain cell has 10,000 connections to other cells. So we will copy that one. It's possible to join to many organizations as an individual and have some work there, maybe for a second or an hour. It doesn't matter. You get the agreement, and the agreement is stored in the smart contract. And when something happens, if someone supports the organization or NFTs are sold, you will get the shares instantly. That's the main idea. And we don't stick anyone to any place.
And the more you guys, we talk about this, I keep seeing, the Cardano logo, with the big circle in the middle. And I feel like, you know, DAOs or people are coming and establishing DAOs, and it's an expansion, it's growing. And as it grows, we do start to develop maybe a second heart or a second brain to feed off of what Nori's saying. We're developing these skills, and now it's grown. It's too large. It needs to separate. So that's where that skill set is captured and transplanted into maybe a more purpose built. You know, this is climate, you know, related DAO. So that skill set goes over into there, and then we still have that main DAO, and it keeps expanding. And so as you grow a second head or a second heart or brain or whatever, that's where you branch off. And where are you most needed? Where does the economy, where does, you know, society need you most? You branch off. And then as that one starts to grow, right, it's expanding again. That skill set then branches off. It's just where is it needed? You know, where does this society need this skill? And it just finds its home, finds a place. And I feel like littlefish is kind of the start of that platform where the supply and the demand kind of meet, right? It's the people who need the things to happen, and then the ability and the skill is they're meeting, and that's where you're connecting what is needed in society and the skill level that's out there. And that's what's creating these new DAOs to develop, you know, branch off the transplant.
You're right.
Loving this transplant and growing this second heart analogy. It's like, I'm thinking right now, what if we had a factory of organ generation? Like, we're just generating new hearts, and then that's like we're creating teams. Imagine just teaching colony. In this teaching colony, they teach how to just run effective DAOs, right? That skill is put inside a team. They build a team of 3, 4, 5, whatever, and then they just send it out to new DAOs. And that could be just one DAO pumping out how to run DAOs teams, and then one DAO pumping out like how to manage treasury well. Like, they just teach that skill and send that out, and that's like your new universities.
Just a side note, when you say a DAO pumping out how to run DAOs, it made me think that it's not so much that there isn't one way to run that DAO, obviously. So I just thought of mentioning it as like we're just facilitators, right? And so it should be how a DAO discovers how to run itself type of, you know, yeah, I think everyone already knew this, obviously, but I'm just highlighting it.
Well, once we actually figure it out, there could be like an entire curriculum on this. Like, there are 25 different patterns of DAOs, for example, and then they teach all of this, and then they go and implement it for that whatever use case that was needed. And the people in the DAO that don't know how to run DAOs, they just do whatever that specific DAO is supposed to do. For example, it's just a DAO to run local politics, for example, or it's just a DAO for whatever else. Like, they don't know how to run DAOs, but you can give them the people that have that knowledge.
Pretty cool. Reminds me of this Miro board. I'm actually not sure who created it. I'd love to know if somebody knows, but it's not about DAOs, but it's about decision-making process, and it has a flow chart, like start here, which decision-making model is right for my team, and then it asks questions and branches and arrives on a style of decision-making that could be helpful. And something like that might be really useful for different parts of a DAO, like how you do decision-making, how you do treasury.
Thank you, Noé. This is very good.
Feels like my Miro board is starting to turn into Discord. I now have like 40 or 50 starred boards. So when I try to navigate, I don't have that second level of organization. It's not a knowledge management database tool.
Yeah.
So
I wish you could
solve this problem. Making it centralized
yeah.
on the UI.
I wish you could paste Miro into Miro and have it show a little mini overview of that Miro board. Because then you can visually say, oh yeah, that's the one I was at last time.
Thought there was what's it called? The clip art. Yeah, you can modify the image that's displayed. Are you talking about like when you're looking at your boards, like the dashboard?
Yeah, but even if I wanted to create my own Miro board and organize them however I wanted,
Oh,
it would be nice to be able to paste a Miro board into a Miro board so that I can organize Miro boards in Miro visually, or by category or by group or something.
wonder if that's possible now with some of their tools.
Might be. I tried cutting and pasting the URL. It doesn't look nice.
You can also try Obsidian for yourself. As a
That's where
second.
I currently hashtag Miro for any Miro board URL. And then I have a query that pulls them out. But
Good find, Nori. Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah, and if anybody finds out who created this, I would love to know, because it was provided as a link in one meeting somewhere and I don't remember where, but it's really nicely put together.
Yeah, this is really good. Just going through this. This could be an entire session in org labs.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool.
So thank you guys. This was my presentation for today. If you have questions, please let me know, or we can stop the video.
Thanks, Jim. That was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.